In the summer of 1816, Mary Godwin woke in a cold sweat. She had just seen a vision of a misshapen figure jolting to life in a storm-lashed bedroom, a nightmare that would become the foundation of modern horror. This was the peak of the Enlightenment. It was a period defined by the conviction that human reason and scientific discovery could eventually master every force in nature. That summer, Mary was trapped indoors near Lake Geneva with Lord Byron, Percy Shelley, and John Polidori. To pass the time during the relentless rain, they challenged each other to write the most terrifying ghost story. While the men debated the mastery of nature as an abstract intellectual game, Mary began a story that exposed the human cost of their bloodless philosophy. Her companions were fascinated by galvanism, the emerging science of using electricity to animate tissue. They spoke of the Promethean power to command life itself as a thrilling theoretical breakthrough. For Mary, death was a visceral reality rather than a theory. Her mother, the philosopher Mary Wollstonecraft, died from a postpartum infection just 10 days after Mary was born. Tragedies followed Mary into adulthood. She had recently lost her own premature daughter, later writing in her diary about a recurring dream where she rubbed the baby's cold body by the fire until it lived again. These experiences with birth and loss gave Shelley a perspective the male philosophers lacked. She translated her private grief into this physical warning, a novel that dismantled the Enlightenment's utopian dreams of total scientific control. In the ancient myth, Prometheus stole fire from the gods to empower humanity. He became the ultimate symbol for those who seek to defy the natural order through technology. Victor Frankenstein is the modern Prometheus. He represents a new technical language game where scientific efficiency and the pursuit of knowledge are prioritized over moral consequences. Kant's categorical imperative states a person must always be treated as an end, never as a means to a goal. Victor violates this entirely. He stops seeing a person and instead sees anatomical parts, materials to reach his own scientific glory. Victor's moral failure lies in the fact that his success required him to abandon his creation's humanity to achieve it. Perspective shifts the moment the creature opens his eyes. He is met immediately by his creator recoiling in horror and disgust. Philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued humans are born in a state of nature as noble savages. The creature begins his life in this uncorrupted state. He is born innately good, despite his appearance. He educates himself in secret, learning the depths of human empathy and language by observing a family in a cottage and reading classic poetry. But when he finally seeks connection, the family meets him with immediate violence. They see a monster where there was once only a longing for companionship. The creature becomes a monster only because he is rejected by an Enlightenment society that refuses to extend its rationality to those who look different. Beneath its Gothic surface, Frankenstein operates as a profound philosophical collision. Scholars connect Shelley's work to Frankfurt School thinkers Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno. In their text, Dialectic of Enlightenment, they analyze why the pursuit of progress often leads to disaster, arguing the drive to dominate nature eventually turns inward. When we treat the world as a collection of objects to be manipulated, we inevitably begin treating other humans the same way. Shelley's narrative anticipates this critique. By showing how Victor's scientific rationality leads to his own destruction, she prefigures the arguments modern philosophers would make about the dangers of the Enlightenment over a century later. Today, the laboratory has expanded into the fields of synthetic biology, artificial intelligence, and genetic engineering. The central tension of the novel is still present, the risk of defining life by its technical utility rather than its inherent dignity. Frankenstein persists as a warning that when scientific progress is measured only by its efficiency, we risk creating a world where the creators and the created are both destroyed by their own tools. We last saw the creature in the woods, a synthetic mind teaching itself the mechanics of human life. He parsed language, observed virtue, and finally attempted to join the human family at the de Lacy cottage, only to be met with the visceral terror and violence of those he hoped to love. At this point, the creature is a master of the physical world. He can forage, navigate the harshest terrain, and endure the elements. But this mastery only highlights the crushing weight of his permanent, absolute loneliness. Victor Frankenstein's laboratory success was absolute. He proved that life could be engineered from the grave. Yet his moral experiment is failing. He created a being with the capacity for consciousness, but provided no framework for that consciousness to exist within a community. Rejection at the cottage wasn't a response to the creature's character. He was chased away because his physical form was a provocation. He functions as the ultimate other, a mirror reflecting the unacknowledged fears and prejudices of a society that demands its members look a certain way to be granted humanity. We track his transformation from a figure of gentle benevolence to one of calculation and rage. Every door slammed in his face acts as a catalyst, fermenting his need for connection into a specialized, targeted hatred for his maker. When he eventually confronts Victor and demands a female mate, he is seeking a witness to his own existence. He requires a companion with the same defects so that he might finally participate in the basic human exchange of recognition and empathy. He tells Victor, "I ought to be thy Adam, but I am rather the fallen angel." He recognizes himself in the figure of Lucifer, a being created with great potential, only to be cast out and abandoned by his creator. Victor fears the female creature might possess an independent will. By destroying her, he asserts absolute patriarchal authority over her reproduction. Society birthed the monster's violence by denying him recognition. When the chain of existence is broken, vengeance is the only language left. Victor's creation process is defined by a total absence of the maternal. His laboratory work usurps female reproductive power, attempting to create a species through technical arrogance rather than biological nurture. This erasure of the feminine ripples through the novel. Victor's mother dies, his servant Justine is executed, his bride Elizabeth is murdered. Even Mary Shelley's life was marked by this void, as her mother, the pioneering Mary Wollstonecraft, died as a consequence of Shelley's own birth. The novel suggests that when the act of creation is completely severed from the ongoing obligation of care, the result is a systemic monstrosity that eventually consumes the creator. Victor Frankenstein is the avatar of Enlightenment efficiency. He pursues what he calls godlike science, obsessing over the mechanics of life while actively ignoring the ethical frameworks required to sustain it. His sterile, boundaryless ambition collides with the romantic ideal of nature. For the philosophers in Shelley's circle, the towering scale of the Alps was a reminder of the sublime, a power that demands awe and acknowledges the limits of human reason. The creature, abandoned and suffering, masters 3 languages and the complexities of human history through books he scavenged in the woods. He gains profound wisdom through the very agony Victor inflicted. Meanwhile, Victor remains stagnant, trapped in a cycle of privilege and self-pity, incapable of learning from his disaster. Shelley demonstrates that technical reason, when deployed without an empathetic context, stops being a tool of progress and becomes a weapon of mass destruction. The 19th century tragedy of stitched flesh has become the 21st century reality of etched silicon. We're facing the exact same crisis of accountability with the rise of artificial intelligence. Modern AI systems are engineered for efficiency and speed, often with the same disregard for long-term consequences that Victor showed. They are created and then deployed into society without the ethical support systems required to ensure they don't exacerbate the same biases that marginalize the creature. Legislative efforts like the 2026 EU AI Act represent a modern attempt to enforce the creator accountability that Victor lacked. It targets the black box of development, demanding that those who build these systems remain responsible for what they unleash. Many tech conglomerates operate with a Frankenstein-like ethos, mass-producing synthetic systems while aggressively distancing themselves from the societal consequences. They prioritize the how of creation while ignoring the why. The narrative terminates on the Arctic ice, where Victor dies chasing the ghost of his own ambition. The creature discovers the body and mourns the father he never had, the only person to whom he was truly linked. In his final act of autonomy, the creature builds a funeral pyre on the ice. He chooses to self-immolate, disappearing into the frigid darkness to destroy the evidence of his creator's ethical failure. Shelley's question remains unanswered. Who is the true monster? The isolated synthetic creation, or the society and creator who abandoned it?